Josephus. It's all in Josephus. Everything is in Josephus. Nobody reads it carefully. No religious people, no secular people. And, I read them about 30 times. So after you read them about 30 times, you get it all in your brain. So Simon Magus, he's in there too? Yeah, he's in there. He's like a Rasputin type that makes it possible for Drusilla to divorce her husband, which was against Jewish law. But Josephus tells us she had already left the religion of her ancestors, Judaism. And then she marries the Roman governor, Felix, who's very, very brutal. At the Dead Sea Scrolls, divorce and polygamy are very big subjects, condemned very aggressively. In any case, Simon Magus is the big evil person for Christian history. And the apostles are supposed to be against him. You see, I don't think they're against him just for the issue of competing over taking money for ministry activity, which is what Acts tries to present the situation between Peter and Simon Magus. I think there must be bigger issues than that. And I think the issues are to be found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. He makes it possible for rulers to divorce. He keeps company with rulers and people like that. I don't think they do. Paul does, but they don't. Anyway, I can't picture Jesus making it possible for a ruler, a Herodian ruler, to divorce his wife to marry a Roman governor. It just seems to be outside his ken. Okay, in any case, at this scene with Paul, there's Drusilla, and then there's Agrippa II. You say, well, who's Agrippa II? He's another Herodian king, son of Agrippa I, and Bernice, his sister, who Josephus covers in great detail, who also divorced a lot of husbands and so on, and she ended up the mistress of Titus, the destroyer of Jerusalem and the temple. Titus treated her like Caesar 100 years before had treated Cleopatra. So what's this got to do with anything? This is how you evaluate Paul and show where he was at, where his mindset was, that the book of Acts is accurate here. Now, I mentioned, I think, parts of Acts. The first part of Acts, I'm filling in background for you here still, 1 to 15, which is sort of spotty and hard to follow and full of miracle stories and sketchy, somewhat made up, I think. From Acts 16 somewhere to the end, we have the we document come in. I told you something about the fact there is a we document. And the pseudo-clementines that I've also mentioned, and I've read to you from, are also expressed in the form of we did this, we did that, we went here, we went there, like a report to somebody. So I think the pseudo-clementines are parallel to the book of Acts in many ways. They are an anti-Acts from a different point of view. A pro-Palestinian, not pro-Pauline. Acts is a pro-Pauline book. Paul is the hero of Acts. And Paul is introduced to us in Acts. First as an opponent of Christianity, then his vision is described, then we follow his missionary journeys, and all the other apostles are forgotten. And basically we end up with Paul in Rome under loose house arrest, being visited by everybody who wanted to see him and paying for his own lodgings, and not in a terribly serious situation, it would seem, in 62, and then it cuts off. But I always ask the question, why does Acts stop in 62? Didn't they know what happened in 63, 64, 65, 66? Didn't the writers know? Well, sure they did. Why did they stop? Maybe there was something worrisome. I don't know why they stopped. What happened in 62 they should have included? Any serious redactor of the Acts of the Apostles would have included the most important event that happened in 62. The death of James, the leader of the church in Jerusalem. No one ever thinks, well, here's what we have. Yeah, But here's what we don't have. Why? Oh, it just happened that way. Did the authors know it? Sure, the authors knew it. How could they not know it? It was the most important event that happened in the history of our early church in that year. I'm not saying the most important event of all in the church, but in that year, certainly. Not Paul's being in a loose house arrest in Rome. That's not the most, that's an interesting point, but that's not the most important event in 62. Why does Acts just trail off in 62? Well, I think it had reasons. It underplays James throughout. Anyway, forget that. If I were writing Acts, it wouldn't end there, put it that way. So, there'd be more in it than that. But so we have to say that Acts, books have agendas. The authors have axes to grind, not axe to grind, but axes to grind. So you always have to think of that. So anyway, at the end of Acts, the last 4 or 5 chapters, Paul is keeping very congenial company with all these murderous people. One even says, if a little more Paul, Agrippa 2 says that, and I would be a Christian. These are the people whose palaces the revolutionaries burned down at the beginning of the war against Rome 3 or 5 or 6 years later as the enemies of the Jewish people. Why would they, what was going on here? When you read your Josephus. And then Bernice is accused of incest with her brother, Agrippa 2. And actually does come in on his arm as, so quasi-consort of some kind. Is she having incest with her brother? We don't know. But anyway, later on then, Titus, the son of Vespasian, who continues the siege of Jerusalem in 68-69 after his father goes back to fight for the emperorship in Rome, after Nero is assassinated in 68, and Vespasian emerges the winner, Titus continues the siege of Jerusalem and then finally destroys the temple and so on and so forth with advice from people like Bernice and her brother, who are in his entourage. Why wouldn't they save the temple? Oh, because they'd been barred from the temple and they were very angry. Their great-grandfather Herod had built the temple or rebuilt it in its present form, and it had only been finished a few years before, but they were happy to see it go. They saw it as the hotbed of revolutionary activity in Palestine in this period. So the picture of Jesus throwing out the money lenders from the temple in the Gospels, I think is a revolutionary act in that context. There's this disturbances, insurgency activity in the temple. Gospel of Mark says he stopped traffic in the temple for a whole day. Well, what do you mean? How could he stop traffic? Nobody could come and go. Well, he had to have an